Well, hello and welcome to Binge Watch, the podcast where we take a look at the hottest new TV and film releases on streaming television platforms. I'm Hannah Fernando, the group editor of Woman and Woman and Home magazine.
And I'm Ian McEwan, writer on TV and Satellite Week, What's on TV and TV Times magazines. And today we're looking at the new releases that will be available on Friday the 30th of August 2024, including Jeff Goldblum as the Greek god Zeus in darkly comic fantasy drama Kaos on Netflix, and new rockumentary K-pop Idols on Apple TV+.
And we'll also be hanging out with Big Cats 24/7 on BBC iPlayer and continuing to investigate Only Murders in the Building with Steve Martin and Martin Short on Disney+. But first, Ian, what is in the news?
Nicole Scherzinger, Kelly Rowland and Liam Payne will be the judges on the new pop group reality series Building the Band. What else is in the news, Hannah?
Best pals and motorbike enthusiasts Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman reunite for Apple TV Plus's 10-part series Long Way, in which they take a 10,000-mile road trip across Europe.
Pretty varied selection for you this week. We've got a rockumentary, we've got a fantasy drama, we've got a lovely wildlife series, and we also have the return of a much-loved comedy drama. We're going to start with a concept that we're very familiar with here on Binge Watch, Kaos. Yes, it's the title of a new fantasy drama that arrived on Thursday, the 29th of August on Netflix. And here's a clip.
All the best things are human.
A line appears, the order wanes, the family falls, and chaos reigns.
They put poop all over our statue. Why would you think that that's funny?
Well, Hannah, who wouldn't want to see the redoubtable Jeff Goldblum doing his very distinctive shtick in a tracksuit as a Greek god? Well, you've got the chance in this. It's a new series. It's created by Charlie Covell, who was behind End of the Effing World, which we very much enjoyed. It's an 8-parter, and it's set on Mount Olympus, well, and on Earth, and it's, as you might have guessed, it's all about the Greek gods, the gods of ancient Greece, who were led, of course, by Zeus, and it's really well done, I've got to say. And in this, Zeus is kind of having a bit of an immortal midlife crisis. He spots a wrinkle on his face, and he just starts freaking out. So let's introduce the gods. I mean, I think if you do know about the Greek gods, and many of us will have learned about them in school, you'll enjoy seeing how they've kind of what they've done with them here, because it's set in the modern world. So you've got Prometheus, probably the most shocking story from the Greek gods, isn't it? Because he stole fire to give to man, and as punishment, gets his liver pecked out every night by an eagle. Not very nice. Anyway, he's played by Stephen Delane. We've also got, you've got Billie Piper is cropping up as Cassandra, who, of course, her prophecy, she prophesies the future, but no one believes her. That's sort of her curse, if you like. You've got Orpheus and Eurydice, played by Killian Scott and Aurora Perrineau, and Eurydice is called Riddy in this, and her story, of course, was that she went to the underworld and Orpheus went after her to try and bring her back. But I don't think you necessarily need to know these stories. If you do, you'll enjoy what they've done with them. But it's just really nicely done. You've got Janet McTeer as Hera, Naban Rizwan as Dionysus. It's I guess he's kind of like the god of pleasure, really, isn't he? And I'm very much looking forward to seeing David Thewlis as Hades, the god of death. And you've also got a little bit of Eddie Izzard along the way. So it's highly original. I think it's ingeniously done. It's great fun. And I particularly like, Orpheus is a musician in Greek mythology and in this, but in this he's kind of like a rock star. And you see him performing his songs. And the music is quite Coldplay-ish. It's just really well done. Everything about it's well done. It's got lots of funny stuff and interesting characters. And for instance, the boat that takes humans to sort of the afterlife in this is like a ferry, a proper ferry, and they're all wearing life jackets, but it's all shot in black and white. It's just full of clever little touches like that. And above all, I mean, Jeff Goldblum, fantastic, having an absolute riot doing this as Zeus. So really different, and I very much enjoyed it. What did you think, Hannah?
Do you know what? It's as you say, it's got a stellar cast, hasn't it? Here, really, which is that alone makes it pretty brilliant. This really, for me, is not something I would classically kind of lend myself to and think, I want to give my time to this. It's just a bit crazy and a bit weird. But it's, as you say, it's really, really well done. And the cast kind of really turned my head. So I thought, do you know what? If they're involved in this, it's got to be pretty good. And there are those just small touches, those clever touches that just set it a little bit above, or probably a lot actually above some of its counterparts and some of the kind of things that we've seen before in a similar vein. And kind of the relationships that run through this always interest me, because it's just so different to anything that we live, like today. It's just sort of the sublime to the ridiculous in places. But again, I think the stellar cast absolutely pull the whole script off, and I suspect at some points they kind of had their input. That's my sense anyway, that they've kind of put their touch all over it, a little sprinkle of gold dust, and definitely worth a watch, even if you think it's not for you, like I did.
Over on Apple TV Plus, arriving on Friday the 30th of August, we have a new rockumentary series called K-pop Idols. And here's a clip.
I slept like 3 hours. I was stranded outside in the cold. I had to go up on stage and act like nothing's wrong.
I thought being a K-pop idol was going to be all great and beautiful. That's not the reality.
K-pop idols give us so many things.
It's been 2 years since I've seen my family. Now that I'm doing it on my own without a label, it's the hardest point in my life.
So I was really interested when I got this one to review, because for some time now in my inbox I've been getting emails about K-pop, and if I'm really honest with you, I didn't particularly know what it was or the premise of it particularly. And also, if I go out with my children, which I do, funnily enough sometimes, I also noticed that there's all these K-pop dolls everywhere, and they kind of mentioned them, and I'm not really, as I said, wasn't really understanding exactly what it was. So I was quite pleased to kind of get this to review, because I could really kind of understand the premise of K-pop and these idols and sort of this huge phenomena. So essentially, it's Korean pop, but they're bands that are put together, and this is a 6-part documentary series, and it follows one person and some bands on their journey of the K-pop industry and the pressures they're put under. Now, it's sort of the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you like, because I think we all know, even in kind of from X Factor, Pop Idol, all of those kind of big hitting shows that we've probably all watched, the pressures that some of these people have put under, because we've seen documentaries of late, we've seen interviews with some of those people where they say, they were, put under this amount of pressure. They couldn't see, I don't know if it's couldn't see their family, but, the pressures of fame, I suppose, that what's part and parcel of this job. But this is kind of almost to a different level. And these people are interviewed, you see their journey, and you see their different journeys. And these people work really, really hard, but they're manufactured, essentially. And it's become, I think, just quite recently very, very popular, say with the dolls that you can buy and this huge following. And, in this series, you can see the different nationalities that are following, these groups, these people, their idols, in a real kind of way that proper fan base. I mean, absolute mega money to be made here. But what money are they making? What pressure are they being put under? And of course, it looks into the companies that are navigating that, the ones that are putting them together, the ones that are sort of creaming it. And again, you know, those stories we've seen a million times, haven't we? Of not necessarily a moral compass being there. And I'm not suggesting that's not the case here, but you know, or that that's the case here. But you know, kind of this just shines a spotlight on how all of this is done and why they're so popular. But the kids really, or some of them are a bit older, but that are behind this, and the pressure that they're under and that filters down to them. You know, they're exhausted, they've got to learn these perfect dance routines in time for these performances, and they don't have any time outside of that. And they're kind of asked, are you prepared to put your life on hold for this? And then you get to know some of them. So you get to know Jessi, for example. She's slightly different. She's done the whole K-pop idol thing, but she's now become a solo artist. And in essence, that's probably even harder because you don't have a group to support as a backbone around you. And she has loads to take on, and it's just awful. You see her crying, you know, it was really compelling, actually, because I didn't think I would be that interested. It hasn't really hit my agenda. It hasn't really hit my life. Kids aren't that interested. You know, pointed out, they understand it. But I suppose it's just the same narrative that we all know, but just in a slightly... it just basically takes the sparkle off it. You just see it for what it is. And I mean, I don't want to ruin it anymore for people, but I find it really interesting and actually really sad in places as well, because this want for fame, this want for perhaps it's money, perhaps it's acceptance. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about fame that attracts some people, but you see it warts and all here. And it's interesting. So for me, I learned quite a lot. I don't know what you thought, Ian.
I did as well. Yeah, and I mean, all I knew about K-pop was Gangnam Style, which is pretty old news these days. But yeah, as you say, it follows 3 acts. There's Jessi, BLACKSWAN, who are sort of like this international K-pop group, which is quite unusual. And then hilariously, the boy band CRAVITY, who someone helpfully explains that their name is a combination of creativity and gravity. And they are all beautiful looking lads, aren't they? They're absolutely stunning looks. And I mean, if you thought boy bands in England and America were heavily manufactured by Svengalis, such as, well, the Backstreet Boys guy that we talked about recently, and the NSYNC guy. And over here, people like Simon Fuller and Simon Cowell. This is on another level, isn't it, K-pop? And we do get to meet the boss of one of the big record companies and his incredibly nerdy son who is taking over the business. So what I particularly enjoyed, I mean, you know, the drilling that they go through in terms of singing and dancing is just astonishing, really. It looks absolutely exhausting. But there's a very formulaic makeup to a K-pop band, which I didn't know, which is that you have the leader, you have someone called the visual, you have someone called the face, you have someone called the Maknae, which is the youngest member of the group. You have different levels of vocalist and rapper. It's just so weird, but interesting. So yeah, it's a fascinating insight into a world I wasn't particularly aware of, but it's a big thing, isn't it, over here? Because we recently had Made in Korea, the K-pop experience, where they send a British band, put them through the sort of K-pop training. So yeah, it's very much of the moment, and I thought it was an interesting watch. Over on Disney Plus, arriving on Tuesday the 27th of August, we have a 4th series of the much-loved comedy drama Only Murders in the Building. And here's a clip.
So what's next podcast-wise?
What we need is a hot, fresh, dead body, preferably right here or very near to here. Somewhere lay a sniper's nest. You know this is happening. We might as well just start.
I just got an email about Hollywood Studios wants to make a movie of our podcast.
The pictures? Pack your bags, bitches. We're going to the movies.
So, 2 episodes available, and then they drop weekly, and for those who aren't familiar with it, this is a kind of a comedy whodunit, American comedy whodunit, starring Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. And the sort of backstory is that they all live in the same apartment building. Gomez plays an artist called Mabel, Steve Martin plays an actor called Charles, and Martin Short plays a director called Oliver. So they all live in the same building. There was a murder there, and then they kind of teamed up to start making a true crime podcast. Okay. Martin Short and Steve Martin are a brilliant double act, and they go out on live tours together, sort of doing songs and comedy and just chatting, and they just work so well. And of course, they're in things like The Three Amigos together, which kind of gets a nod in the first episode of this new series. So what's happening as we return is Hollywood has decided to make a movie about these podcasters, the whodunit podcast, and so they're trying to convince them to sign up for this, and they have got a different attitudes towards whether or not they want to sign on the dotted line. And to kind of encourage them, they introduce them to the people that they've cast to play them in the film version. It's just great. So Eugene Levy is going to play Steve Martin's character, Eva Longoria from Desperate Housewives, and also, hilariously, Zach Galifianakis from The Hangover is going to play Martin Short's character. But Martin Short has no idea who he is. So, I mean, people will remember from Steve Martin's wonderful comedy films, so many of them, that he's a brilliant physical comedian, and that there's a lovely moment where they're sat across this very big table from the Hollywood executives, and he writes down a number on a piece of paper that's like the figure. This is the figure that we're going to want to sign this deal. And then the table's so wide, he can't get it across to the other side, and he's kind of reaching over, trying to push it. Just little touches like that. So it's just utterly charming, this series. It's an absolute delight. I mean, occasionally it's a little bit clunky, but that's almost part of the enjoyment. And there's such a good chemistry between the leads, an absolute delight. And it ended on a sort of cliffhanger at the end of the last series where someone was killed. Pleased to see it back, and it's just a joyous thing. Do you like this, Hannah?
Do you know what? Again, it's just a great cast, isn't it? I mean, it's just absolutely brilliant. I mean, what I'm hopeful of is that obviously at some point we'll be picked up in, and a film will be made of our podding, because it makes for interesting
who
viewing.
Will play you, I wonder, Hannah?
Oh, now there's a question. Who would I like to play me, or who would play me? Do you know what? I think this is quite fun, actually. I mean, it's a bit hammy in places and a bit silly, but again, some great names which kind of almost add to its value, I think, in a lot of ways. And I always think that you've got some big names. You're either kind of trying to, don't look over here, look over there, but in the most part, they won't play it unless it's good. It's just fun, and I just love the fact that they can't sort of believe their luck, really. This is a sort of big budget movie made about them and them kind of navigating that. So I there's nothing not to like about this, really. I don't think. I think most people will just enjoy it. It's a bit of light entertainment.
We're going to finish on BBC iPlayer with a new wildlife series that became available as a box set on Sunday the 25th of August. It's called Big Cats 24/7, and here's a clip.
The Okavango Delta, where big cats behave like nowhere else. Follow their drama through the day.
Absolute chaos. Oh my gosh.
That was crazy, wasn't it?
And the night. Big Cats 24/7. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
Yes, do you know what? I love these kind of documentaries about wildlife where they're so exposed and they're so raw, or you assume they are. This one certainly feels that way. And just as it says on the tin, 24/7, these big cats are being followed in the 6-month expedition. Not just lions, but leopards and cheetahs. And you've got a wildlife cinematographer who's following this huge pride in Africa. And I don't know if you've ever been on a safari. I was lucky enough to go on one for my honeymoon, and we just followed for a few days. So you just got a kind of a short look into their lives. But at the beginning, you're sort of so kind of, oh God, I don't want them to kill, that's just so awful, and it's a baby, and whatever it is they're trying to go for. But at the end of the 2 or 3 days, you know that these lionesses need to feed their young, otherwise, for survival, and they're teaching them how to capture something, and it's incredible. I mean, wildlife is incredible. We could learn an awful lot from it, really, one way or another. But it's just literally survival of the fittest, and then teaching their young to go out and be able to survive on their own. And this is kind of what you see here, but it's over 6 months, and of course within that joy, there's also, as with all of these wildlife programs, really is tainted by sadness in places. But they managed to track down this really elusive big cat, the cheetah, and you see, and I think wildlife documentaries do this. I suppose they humanise it to a degree, although this falls just short of doing that completely. But where you see them rekindle relationships within the big cat family, if you like. And I just think that is just so lovely, because again, we're closer to wildlife than we think we are, and yet we've got a lot to learn from them too in terms of some of their behaviours. But it's very raw, it's very, very real, and one of the saddest parts is this huge wildfire, and it doesn't just threaten the animals, which of course it would do, their habitat, but also the filmmakers that are on this, who are following them, every step of the way. And the drought, there's absolutely no water for them at times. It's quite a ride to watch this, actually. You'll go through an awful lot of emotions, but it does end on a bit of a cliffhanger. I think it's open for more. We've seen this before. It will happen again, and I think it's compelling viewing. It really is. I really enjoyed what I've seen of this so far, and I enjoy this kind of genre anyway. As we've spoken about before. I don't know what you thought, Ian.
Yeah, I thought it was very good, and it starts in dramatic fashion with a leopard leaping out of a tree. It's trying to land on, I think it's an impala. And with this, rather than just seeing lots of amazing footage that's been painstakingly shot and then having a voiceover, you're very much riding with the camera people. So that there's a group of them, including Gordon Buchanan, Scottish filmmaker, who's very familiar to us. So yeah, you're literally on board with them in their jeeps as they go off, and he's using an incredible night vision camera which delivers astonishing shots of the lions hunting at night. There are so many great moments. There's also an incredible moment where their camp that they're in, it's not fenced off in any way, and a bull elephant just comes into the camp, and one of them is trying to shoo it away. It's very dramatic. There's an incredible sequence, as you say, the lionesses, they're kind of getting to the point in episode 1 where it's been too long between kills, and then they do manage to get a kill, but the young males kind of hog all the meat, and so the cubs don't get fed. And at one point, the lionesses are so desperate that a leopard, there's also leopards in this, which are fascinating creatures, and a leopard has stashed a kill up in a tree, and you think, well, that's safe from the lions. But no, a lioness manages to climb up the tree and steal it, which is highly unusual behaviour and just driven by extreme hunger. So, yeah, I think it's something different. I really like that the heavy involvement of the camera people and the experts all working together and on the radio to each other. They're filming day and night, the mechanical breakdowns and spotting big cats, losing sight of them, trying to find them again. So, yeah, I thought it was very, very good. Now we've got to that time, at long last, Hannah, where we find out what you've been binge watching this week.
Well, with the dreadfully sad news of Sven, and I know we reviewed this, I did sort of go back and have a look at that. I felt really saddened when that breaking news came through, to be honest with you. So I went back and watched that again, and, as we said at the time, just a thoroughly nice chap, really. So I did watch that. And also with the news of Oasis, I see that Amazon Prime have popped up Oasis there and then. So I just dipped into that last night, and I need to continue watching that to get ready to see if we can all get tickets.
Good stuff. Well, because a new series of Sherwood arrived this week, I went back to watch series 1 just to kind of remind myself. And Leslie Manville is in it, and of course she's also in a lovely, delightful film on Netflix called Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, which is a beautiful bit of escapism and highly recommended. Well, we've just got time to look forward to next week's offerings, Hannah, so what are we going to be talking about?
Well, Aussie rom-com Colin from Account returns to BBC iPlayer, which sounds absolutely brilliant.
Yes, and it's got a very cute little border terrier dog in it. And tragedy strikes a high society wedding in Netflix whodunit The Perfect Couple, starring Nicole Kidman. Yes, so we look forward to those and much, much more. But in the meantime, listeners,
keep watching!